Hey there, this is Sarah Nadler of Sarah's Weddings. I'm a wedding coordinator here in Portland, Oregon. I'm also a minister, and I'm here to talk to you about my best tips for how to plan your wedding on a shoestring budget without going nuts or going broke. So here we go. The first thing I want you to do is go ahead and download this workbook that I created to go with this webinar. It is absolutely chock full of tips for you. So that's definitely something you want to do. And then go ahead and turn off all of your distractions. Put your phone down, turning off your notifications, etc. Grab a pen so that you're ready to take your notes, and let's get started. Before I really dive into the training, I want to make sure you're in the right place. This is not a webinar for everybody, okay? So tell me in the comments below, are you someone who really feels like you're being pressured by maybe family members or friends to create a wedding a certain way, something that doesn't really align with what you need and want? Or maybe you're not getting support from your partner to actually design this wedding the way that you want it to be. Or maybe you're looking for a specific look, something that's a little bit more designer, a little bit more glam and out there, but you've got a budget that doesn't seem to really align with that. Does that sound like you? Or maybe you want to still have funds after the wedding day to start a family or own your own home. Or if you already own your own home like Ben and I, maybe you want to make real estate investments or other types of investments that are going to allow you to travel or stay home with your kids, get that passive income going, right? Which is not necessarily possible if you spend all of your money on your wedding day. So I'm going to show you different ways that we can avoid that, going down that road of pain, and instead have your wedding day be a relaxing, beautiful, really on point day that's designed the way you want it to be designed without necessarily breaking the bank, okay? Now, really the key factors here are, we're going to talk a little bit about mindset. I am a lifestyle coach, but we're also going to be focusing on design elements, okay? And really making sure that we make a cohesive design for your wedding day. That's really going to be the focus here. And just to give you a little bit of background on me and who I am, 12 years ago I became an ordained minister. I know that's a strange thing to do in your early 20s, but I didn't start out as a wedding officiant. I'm a real minister. I had my own congregation for about 10 years, and it all kind of started a little over 12 years ago when I lost my sister. And within a 6-month time period of my life, when I was in my very early 20s, my sister passed away in my arms. My parents got divorced. My fiance at the time ended up being an alcoholic, which I hadn't known, and he stole from me and ran off. So that was a very hard time for me, and I went on this journey of self-discovery, which ended up with me living in a small town in Mexico, and starting this congregation to help others. So that's really where I kind of learned to want to help others selflessly. I know it's not usual to do free wedding planning for people, but that's kind of where I learned that whole concept of, you know, we all deserve to have a little bit of help, especially on the happiest day of our lives. And I'm really proud to be here with you guys and help you to make this a beautiful day. After that whole time period of my life, I definitely have done a lot of traveling since then, seen a lot of different countries and people, and I believe strongly that everyone has the right to marriage, and I'm a strong human rights activist, and I'm also a mindset and relationship coach. So we're going to be focusing, like I said, on not just the design elements today, but also how you can work together as a partnership to build a strong and lasting marriage, not just a wedding day, all right? Now, I know that it's hard sometimes to focus and stick around to the end of a webinar, but if you do decide to stick around, I am going to be offering a free wedding planning session to anyone who comes to the end of this webinar and contacts me, okay? So we'll be doing your free wedding vision board, and I'll explain a little bit more about how to get that at the end here. All right, so let's get into the training here. The first thing we're going to be covering is how to plan a wedding plan, how to do wedding planning without letting it consume your life. So if you go into your workbook, you'll see that I covered a little bit about this at the very beginning in section 1. This is taken from my signature relationship coaching program called Get Married, Stay Married, which you can find out more about at getmarriedstaymarried.com. But essentially, the top reason for divorce in the United States is arguments over money. And I pretty much came to the conclusion after 12 years of doing this that it's not all right to charge an arm and a leg and, you know, your firstborn child just to have a wedding day. It really does require some planning and some partnership and working together to make sure that your wedding day doesn't consume your budget. So we're going to talk about best ways to do that. The first step I think is very important is to really get down to basics on your why for getting married, right? Because your wedding day is not all there is. And if that's the focus of your excitement over being married, then there might be something we want to look at about that. So go ahead and really take a moment here to do this exercise as I've laid out here in your workbook. It's called The Science of Marriage. I want you to really nail down for yourself, why do I want to be married? And make sure you weave that into your wedding day. So it's not just about the materialism, right? It's not just about the dress and the pretty flowers. It's about the first day of the happiest part of your life. That's what I want, right? Okay, so then the next tip I have for you once you've done that is, shockingly, do more of what made you want to get married. Meaning, if you had date nights every week, if you have those little things that you do for him or for her, don't stop doing those things while you're planning your wedding. Because again, remember, this is your engagement season. This is really the part of your life where you learn the skills that will make you a strong marriage after this. So we don't want to drop out all of those successful actions, right? Mindset is very important here. I always say that when Ben and I were getting married, we really were our best wedding planning team. That's not to say that your vendors are not part of your team. They're absolutely a very key part of your team. If you happen to have the budget for a wedding planner who's going to help you design the entire wedding, that is amazing. But actually, at least here in Oregon, where I live, less than 2% of brides and couples hire a wedding planner. So for the other 98% of us, you really do have to come together as a team, be willing to cooperate, and be excited for each other in implementing the things that you want to see on your wedding day. Okay, so really make sure you're keeping that tight teammanship. And again, in the workbook, I did include a worksheet of a little drill that I use in Get Married, Stay Married. It's basically about creating positive affirmations, because here's the truth, right? What you get is what you push. So if you push what the other person is doing wrong all the time, you're probably going to get more of what the person's doing wrong. Maybe not that same thing that you asked them not to do, but they'll, you know, almost instinctively be kind of creating other things that you don't like. So when you push what you like, you're more likely to get more of it. So remembering to do those positive affirmations on a daily basis or weekly basis is very important. So I hope you guys find that helpful in planning your wedding together. Okay, let's go on to more of the design elements, the frou-frou, the fun stuff, right? I have a background in graphic design before I got into weddings and whatnot. So this is a very exciting thing for me because I feel like I have a lot of value I can offer you girls. So we're gonna focus on just a few very basic key things in this workshop. But if you want some more help to actually design your full wedding, feel free to contact me. I absolutely am willing to be there for you. Okay, so the first thing you do, and again, now we're moving into section 2 in case you're wondering about your workbook. The first thing you want to do is really start out with a financial assessment, right? You can create a designer look to your wedding with pretty much any budget. It's just a matter of how frugal you have to be and how careful you have to be with those planning details. The more money you have, the more careless you can be about it, and it'll still look good. That's just kind of the truth, right? But we're going to start either way with a financial assessment. Now, my husband, Ben, happens to be a financial advisor. So he actually put together for you this really great checklist of how you want to do this financial assessment. So go ahead and feel free to use that, but I'm going to walk you through these steps. First of all, you want to set the vision. That's really your overall big, think pin board, right? Go onto Pinterest and just start deciding on kind of what the idea you want for your wedding. And then get super organized about this, right? Assess your finances using this financial assessment, and then don't be afraid to ask for help. And this is a very key thing because I find that a lot of couples are quite nervous or embarrassed or a little fearful sometimes of asking their parents or asking other loved ones for help on their wedding. And one thing that they fail to realize is that people want to help you. The people who love you want to help you. So I've actually seen over and over again, mother of the bride, mother of the groom, complaining on the wedding day or after the wedding day that they weren't allowed to help as much as they wanted to. Go figure, right? In this day and age, you think, oh, people don't want to help other people, but it's totally not true. So it's all about the manner in which you approach the person. If you walk up to your parents, you go, hey, I'm getting married. How much are you willing to front for this? You're probably not going to get the response you're looking for. But maybe something along these lines, Dad, I just want to let you know, Ben just proposed to me. I'm super excited. Yes, of course you're invited. Ha ha ha, right? Like get a little bit of light humor in there. I really wanted to ask if you would give me away, have that emotional moment, right? Let him have that emotional moment. And then maybe something along the lines of, I just wanted to find out, I don't know if you've ever thought about the fact that I would one day get married, but is there anything that you wanted to contribute to the wedding day or that you wanted to have included? And then kind of let him express what his own opinion, right? Same thing with a mom. Moms in particular, in my experience, mother of the bride has usually been dreaming of this day since you were toddling around. So letting her at least voice what she wants with the full knowingness that you may not accept all of her opinions or use all of her ideas, but at least letting her voice them really grants a lot of beingness to that person. It allows them to feel accepted and wanted, and that their help is really valuable to you. And then you can approach the financial aspect of things. But if you start out from the idea that none of her opinion matters, and that sort of like firm, I would almost call it a stubborn necessity to be independent. It's totally all right to be independent. Not all of us have amazing relationships with our mothers. I know sometimes I haven't always had the best relationship with my mother, but at the same time, I respect the fact that she raised me, right? So having that kind of mutual respect in the conversation can sometimes help too. Anyway, if you guys need any help with this, I actually have on my wedding planning price sheet, I have specifically wedding planning by the hour, and it specifically says underneath that I will speak to anyone about anything regarding your wedding, because I just know that these hard to have conversations are sometimes the most valuable to have a little bit of backup and support on. So if you need any help with this, you want to role play it, you want to drill it, you don't know what to say, you want a little patter, or you want me to have the conversation for you, I'm totally there for you, okay? All right, so you ask for help, and then after you've asked for help and you've kind of gotten a sense of what everybody wants to contribute and what you yourself can do, right, from your financial assessment, then you put together a realistic budget, okay? Now, my favorite thing to do is to put all of this into a spreadsheet, and if you'd like a copy of my spreadsheet, I will absolutely give it to you, no cost whatsoever. Just go ahead and contact me after this webinar. All right, so enough about budgeting. Let's move on to the fun stuff. So really, after you've gotten that financial assessment done, the next step is actually to choose a theme and a mood. Now, I would argue really that even prior to this step, you want to have a wedding date or at least a wedding season. Really knowing what season your wedding's going to be in is going to just contribute so much to the design. Because, if you're hoping to have a beach wedding, probably December is not the best day unless you happen to live in Australia, right? Or there's so many different factors that could make this just that much harder and more expensive than if we just had your wedding in the correct season, right? So once you've gotten your head wrapped around the right budget, then we want to take a look at that season, and then from that season, choose a theme and a mood. So my favorite method of doing this, I'm going to just show you right now, is when my computer stops being funky, I'll show you. there we go, is to just go on Pinterest, you know, and decide what you're looking for. Let's say you're thinking about maybe a Disney theme wedding. There's just so much that you can get out of Pinterest these days that this really is just hands down the best way to choose your theme and mood. So just start pinning things that you like, you know, rejecting the things you don't like, and really kind of getting a sense for what your own personal wedding style is. In my experience, every person's wedding style is different. I've never had in my entire life of 12 years of wedding planning, I have never had two brides want the same exact thing. So don't worry about being unique. You already are unique, and all you have to do is just express that. And that's, again, what I'm here to help you do, right? So really get that sense of what theme you want. Now, sometimes people ask me, what do you mean by mood? Well, you know, do you want something more formal? Are you looking for something more laid back? Are you really more of like the cheerful type of person, or are you a little bit more conservative? We want to kind of get that. It's almost like branding. It's like branding your wedding. What part of your couple story are you going to be telling with this wedding day? That's what I mean by mood. And maybe even jotting down a paragraph or two for yourself of what that is to you. What message do you want people to walk away from your wedding with? That will kind of help you as you're moving along and you see that butterfly effect, as I call it. You see that bright, pretty thing and you go, wait, no, that's not my mood. That's not the mood I'm looking for, right? And you go, oh, that's a really cool idea. Oh, that's a really cool idea. Oh, but nope, but those are not on my mood. So really kind of nailing this down from the beginning will help make your wedding look designer, because it doesn't have these just kind of randomly thrown together cool ideas, okay? That's not what we're looking for. Okay, so then after you've chosen a theme and a mood, the next thing we want to do is choose a type of location. Now, I put emphasis on type here because at this stage, you don't need to have a venue picked out, right? We just need a type of venue. So is it going to be at a beach, or is it going to be at a hotel, or is it going to be at a park, right? You don't have to specifically name the hotel if you don't know yet. That's totally fine, but at least choosing a type of location will start to, again, get rid of all of the ideas that don't fit into that category, okay? And then we come to wedding colors. Now, hands down, my absolute favorite tool for choosing a wedding color palette is on Wedding Wire. So if you go to weddingwire.com, it's the, let's see if I can type this right, color palette generator. Oh, I was so close. Okay, it's something like that. I'll put the link below for you. But if you go to Wedding Wire and go to planning tools, you will find in here somewhere, I promise you, the wedding color generator. Actually, it might be wedding color generator. Anyway, we'll find it. And just get a general sense of what colors you want. And then here's what you're going to do. This is a very specific exercise I want you to do, okay? This is design school for non-designers. That's literally what I call it. Ready? Design school for non-designers. Okay, so you've chosen your base color. Maybe it's red or blue. Now we need to find complementary colors. Now, what the heck does that mean, right? Well, here's a couple of examples. First of all, you can try bold contrasting hues. So again, let's jump to Pinterest and take a look at that. That could be like red and cyan. Cyan's a form of blue, right? Red and cyan, wedding. See, these are very contrasting colors, very, very contrasting colors. And not everybody likes that, but it is a particular style. And if that's your vibe, go with it, right? That yellow and blue or red and cyan, those are contrasting colors, right? They're opposites on the color wheel, or at least as close to that as we can find. The other example of finding complementary colors is to use shades of a base. This is known as an ombre. If you're from Portland, you definitely know what an ombre is. It's that thing where you go blue, 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 purple, right? Plenty of hair ombres that you see these days. But I'll show you an ombre wedding. So this is, here you go, perfect example. That deep purple to light pink, right? Or here's another example, different shades of the same color. right? There's a wild, crazy example right there. So those are also lovely. This is a beautiful way to have that, not have just one color, but just kind of shades of a color. Here's another beautiful one with many different shades of blue, right? So those can be nice using ombres. Another way to do it is neutral tones. So having shades of gray or cream and white or beige, even grays and black. Those can be beautiful, beautiful weddings. So let's take a look at that beige wedding. All right, so it kind of gives you that soft feel. And what you do when you want to use neutral tones, what you're looking for is to have the colors be neutral, and then you use texture to make it pop. So in this great example, they have this sort of beige and green color, and then these are, see, they have lace, and then they have metallics. So adding texture to it is how you kind of make things pop when you're using those lighter tones. And then that leads into my last one, which is you can have just one base color and obviously white and then the green of your flowers, and then go glam with a metallic. That's one of my favorite ways to do it if we want to do a metallic wedding. Now the key here is to not have everything in the wedding be metallic. We want to use metallics kind of sparingly to really accent things. Copper is a nice metallic to use in weddings. You know, there's so many ways you can do this. Here's a beautiful example. There's another beautiful example. This one might even be a little over the top, but for some that would really work, right? So really throwing in a metallic or two to kind of give it that extra glam feel, that Hollywood wedding feel, okay? I'm from Hollywood. I lived near, just few blocks away from Hollywood for 10 years and definitely helped plan a few weddings in that area. So they like their metallics. Okay, so my number one tip for you when it comes to creating a designer wedding on a shoestring budget is no matter what you do, just stick to your wedding colors. I don't care what amazing idea it seems. If it doesn't come in your wedding colors, don't add it in. And if you just stick to your wedding colors, even if you are very scarce on the details, it'll still look way better than if you go off color, okay? So that's my number one tip for you when it comes to design. And then lastly, if you have a choice between two things of, say, equal importance to you or equal amount budget-wise, choose the one that's going to create a great guest experience. If you have you're trying to make a choice between an activity you could do at your wedding or having prettier flowers, scratch the prettier flowers and do the activity, because remember, it's the memories that you're building that are going to be important on your wedding day. And those memories are built by people. They're not built by objects. They're not built by design or by colors or flowers. Memories are made by people. So just remember, whatever you do, have a good time at your wedding and do what you have to do to make that necessary. That's going to be worth it no matter what your wedding day ends up looking like. As long as you remember it as that happy, beautiful day, you will not go wrong, all right? Okay, last bit of training here. Oh, I almost forgot. P.S. Don't forget the ceremony. So many times people get wrapped up in the details of the design and the decor and the reception, and they forget that what we're actually coming together to do is have a ceremony. So don't forget to hire your minister. Actually, statistically speaking, the minister is usually the last vendor hired, which is just ridiculous because the minister is the only vendor that you actually need to have a wedding. So don't forget that. I also included in your workbook a whole little section on what goes on your ceremony script so that you have some idea of what the traditions are. I threw in a few historical facts. Sometimes people are curious about why we wear a wedding ring, why we wear it on this particular finger. All of that is in your workbook. So just a little extra that I threw in there for you. And don't forget to actually lay that out. If you want help to write your own vows, you can definitely contact me, okay? All right, so last bit of training, how to choose vendors that don't suck, right? Now, my first tip to you is use a preferred vendor list. If you find one vendor that you absolutely adore and love, ask them who else they've worked with before, because we all know each other and we usually end up knowing who's really good and who's just kind of okay, right? I have my own preferred vendors list. I'd be happy to share it with you if you happen to live near Portland. And I'll tell you, everybody I know, just as an example, Diane Tiller has been doing wedding flowers in Portland for over 30 years. She's amazing and she's very reasonably priced. So great choice if you're looking for someone. My next tip for you is ask the right questions. Now, if you go online, you can find dozens of checklists of best questions to ask your wedding photographer and best questions to ask your venue. So I didn't even bother to repeat all that because you can find that on Google. But what you can't necessarily find is my list of red flags. So go ahead and look in your workbook. You'll see vendor warning signs. And I want you to keep a real eye out for these. And remember not to hire someone if they fall on that list. Okay? Even if I do one of these things to you, don't hire me. That's how important this is. I will even allow you to fire me if I'm doing one of these things to you. But these are important questions to ask yourself. And then I also included just the, the broad general questions you should ask the vendor. So I hope that's helpful to you. And then lastly, I want you to raise your right hand, Scout's honor, or put your hand over your heart and promise me that you will not sign anything unless you have read it. The horror stories I could tell you. In fact, I will tell you. I'm going to tell you a horror story. Just about 2.5 weeks ago now, a couple called me. It was after 8 o'clock at night. And yes, I do give out my cell phone number to clients. I don't know why sometimes, but I do. And this couple called me. They had found me on the internet and they reached out to me, and the bride was crying, literally crying. And here I am with my grocery bags about to step into my house with my cell phone like this and listening to her sob story because she had signed up with this venue and she absolutely loved the venue. There was nothing wrong with that. But she hadn't read the contract. And the catering company that they had on their preferred vendor list, they only had 2 venues. They only had 2 catering companies on their preferred vendors list. And they wouldn't, in their contract, it specifically said she could not have any other catering company. And one of the catering companies was a dessert company and the other one served barbecue. And that's just not what she wanted. So she had this beautiful, amazing menu all laid out. And she had 2 options. She could break her contract and pay the fee, or she could give up on her reception, her dream reception that she wanted. And she was calling me too late. I couldn't do anything about it because she'd already signed the contract. So luckily, unfortunately, I had to tell her, I'm sorry, I'm not even going to ask you to pay me to help you with this because I already know it's going to go one of 2 ways and neither of them are what you want. So I wasn't able to even be there for her because the truth was I don't know anyone in town who could have gotten that venue to change their mind about that. Her best shot, and I told her this, was to just try her darndest to get the catering company that she wanted to get onto their preferred vendor list, which is usually not very difficult. It just requires them putting up upfront a little bit of money. And I don't know what ended up happening with that, but that's a warning we should all take, right? That once you've signed that contract, it's a legally binding document, and no amount of begging your wedding coordinator is going to change that. So usually what I do when I get hired as a day of coordinator is the first thing I ask for is the contact information of all of your vendors, and I read the contracts and look for any gaping holes that we need to fill. And sometimes I do find these conflicts that really end up being quite a bummer. So just know that when you're finally getting around to reading the contract a month before your wedding, it's probably too late at that point. So like I said, please do yourselves the favor and just read it before you sign. And if you aren't sure what all that crazy verbiage means, then send it to me and I will read it for you and I will let you know. I'll translate what it means for you, okay? All right, so speaking of vendors, I do feel it's very important to have someone there on your wedding day who's going to make it so you can relax and just have a good time at your own wedding and not be running around like a little chicken, putting up decor, trying to call all the vendors, make sure they're coming, having guests texting and emailing and calling you, asking, what time does it start? Am I supposed to wear this? Can I bring my 2-year-old? All of those questions, and instead just allow you to relax and sit in the bridal suite or hang out with the guys for the last few hours and enjoy your wedding day. So if you're looking for someone who's not just gonna just show up the day of and be there, but actually give you the support beforehand and the day of, I would love to be there for you. So if you found this to be a helpful webinar, if you feel like we'd be a good match, then feel free to reach out to me. Like I said, I am offering a 1-hour free wedding planning session to anyone who gets to the end of this webinar and asks me about it. And I would, yeah, absolutely love to chat with you. So go ahead and reach out to me. My wedding planning website is sarahweddings.com. That's Sarah with an H. If you leave my H off, you will not find my website. So don't forget, okay? Have a great time. Bye.